Welcome to the TTT News Special. I'm DK Rosta. We are very happy to be speaking with Dr. Joanne Tull. She's an academic, a researcher and consultant in Caribbean creative economy development with particular interest in festival statistics, and I underline that because I want to come back to it, as well as cultural industries, development impacts, and creative entrepreneurship and strategy. Now, she lectures in the Carnival Studies program and so much more. But thank you for joining us once again as we try to get in as much time with you as possible, Dr. Tull. But what actually started, what piqued my interest in having this conversation was the advertisement I saw for the Post Graduate Diploma in Arts and Cultural Enterprise Management. So that is our jump-off point. Yeah. So give us a little history, a little information about that. Thank you.
Right, so the postgraduate program is a postgraduate diploma in Arts and Cultural Enterprise Management. You may hear it referred to affectionately as ACAM. Was started a few years ago, 2002, 2003, as our response to that lack of capacity with regard to enterprise management in the creative industries. And going through the region, working on various industries, particularly the music industry, the festivals, we kept encountering a situation where persons didn't necessarily have those skills to navigate their own creative or cultural enterprises. And even at the level of those operating in the policy environment, we found that many desired being able to push through where cultural policy and creative industries policy is concerned, but they didn't necessarily have that know-how. And so under the direction of Dr. Keith Nurse, we would have created the program. Some of our outstanding colleagues have been with us for many years, including Dr. Susan Burke. And so the program today, as you see it, hasn't changed much in terms of content, but certainly, of course, we have adjusted with the times in terms of the needs of our stakeholders and who we believe, we try to target those who we believe are very much in need of these skills.
Now, when you all started in 2002, 2003, I am not thinking that you all were thinking about the pandemic as it obtains now. What's the significance of the course during a period like this?
Right. So it's interesting you should say that, Dyke. So we were not thinking about the pandemic, but given the persons who I've mentioned have taught on this program, if you know anything about our work, we've always been persons very much concerned with being ahead of the game. And so the program has always been structured in a way to encourage our students to be resilient thinkers, to be the ones who are the innovators. There is an adage I like to use where I tell them about catching the wave. You know how the surfer goes, and when the wave is going to dip, he always jumps off before it does. So in a sense, ACAM has always been structured that way, doing courses such as cultural policy, business strategies, funding and financial management for the arts. They have to do their practicum, which is very much focused on it has to be a real project or a real venture, either one that they've started already or one that they're thinking about doing. And the idea really is to be able to shape your own innovative capacities as well as to be resilient. So to come back even more directly to what you just asked, I suppose in a pandemic now, it requires a program such as this to encourage our students to be even more resilient and to think of their ways of building that resilience in spite of the context in which we're operating.
Is there an ideal candidate or individual person that would be subscribing to ACAM?
Well, I suppose the ideal here is that this is a person who operates in the cultural and creative industries, as broad as that. Particularly from the region, but we're very much open to having persons from outside of the region. This is someone who is interested in having their innovation tip harnessed, someone who is a creative thinker, someone who is progressive in whatever way, who is into diverse activities. And that's the ideal person, candidate, but in a more practical sense, persons who are working in the Ministry of Culture who have to deal with the creative industries, ministries of trade, heritage. The gamut is quite wide. You may also be interested in teaching strategies, whatever level that may be at, particularly now for us, one of our huge catchment areas our teachers who are teaching the performing arts CAPE course, which requires a lot of the content that we teach in ACAM. And so you basically are looking not just in terms of the ideal graduate, but of course, where we are likely to find those persons in terms of their line of work. And of course, most importantly, can't forget the cultural or creative entrepreneur, the person who is harnessing and shaping and molding their own business. That's who we are looking for.
And I want to ask how people engage, how people subscribe to ACAM. But before I do that, the reason I asked about the ideal candidate is that it seems as though someone who might subscribe to a course like that has already kind of drunk the Kool-Aid, they're already converted, and they see the benefit. But is part of the issue a problem or an inability to measure cultural goods and services, saying, okay, well, this is the value that we need to ascribe to that, and this is why it is important, this is why we need to take it forward?
Right. Well, I suppose I could answer that in two ways. We do have persons, especially in this our most recent cohort, who actually work in policy context. And so they would be concerned with that. It's interesting you should say that. It's not a specific focus in ACAM in terms of festival economics and festival statistics. Don't worry, Dyke, we come in with that just now. We are actually, with the support of CDB, now about to craft a program such as that to deal directly with measuring and evaluating. But in terms of ACAM itself, measuring is inside of there because, of course, if one is going to implement a strategy, you have to also gauge it. You have to assess it. You have to ensure that what you are implementing is something that can work and not just work for you, but of course could be replicated in other contexts. So it's inherent in there, though it's not a direct focus in that sense. Because we do believe that that is one of our critical areas across the region, our inability to really assess and track our growth where the cultural and creative industries are concerned. And so ACAM fills that gap in a sense that way, but more importantly, giving people the skills that they could go out there and articulate that. And I think our roster of graduates speaks to that.
I think it's very important being able to articulate and say, okay, we'll move forward from that. And I like the fact that you spoke about catching that wave. So how do people catch the wave and say, okay, well, I'm going to be a part of this next cohort?
Right. So apart from the advertisements that you would have seen on my page, Joanne Tull on the Facebook, certainly at the UWI website, you just certainly Google the University of the West Indies St. Augustine campus. Our website comes up quite easily. And you click on the link where it says apply now, and you will see it lead you into the various faculties. We are in the Faculty of Humanities and Education. Our department is the Department of Creative and Festival Arts, and you will see our ACAM postgraduate program link there. And when you click on the apply now, you're not clicking undergrad, you're clicking postgrad because it's a postgraduate program. Now, one of the beauties of this course is the fact that you don't necessarily have to have a degree, but that catching of the wave, or as you said, drinking the Kool-Aid before becomes very important to us. So we welcome persons who have experience in the field. And of course, they can justifiably show that through their application that they are experienced persons and they're simply coming here now to harness further what they already know, or of course, to get that qualification that they believe they deserve for the work that they've already put into the sector.
Putting the paper behind the practice. And we continue the conversation. When we return, we are speaking with Dr. Joanne Tull about many things, art and culture, the cultural industry. And stay with us. We come back after this. Welcome back. We are continuing this stimulating discussion with Dr. Joanne Tull. I wish we could have more time, but definitely we'll make use of the time that we have. And Dr. Tull, I want to get your perception, though, on the current status of festival economics, and this is due to COVID impact.
Oh, yes. Well, certainly. As we all know, the festival economy has been severely hit by COVID. I mean, the fact that we can't gather, as we know, gathering is a very important aspect of the festival economy in terms of attendance. And if we drill down to the carnival sector here in Trinidad and Tobago, It's not just simply those who directly would participate in the carnival, but of course, when I say participate, I mean as industry stakeholders, direct industry stakeholders. But as you know, many sectors, many other aspects of our economy have boomed. Our airline, of course, people coming, the hospitality, food and beverage, the individuals, small entrepreneurs who would ply their trade outside of these events, persons who are in the beauty retail sector, and I could go on and on. Seamstresses, I could go on and on. So that the carnival ecosystem has had a significant negative impact on account of the pandemic. What does that mean for us really? This is a time to, I suppose, at a particular level, and I want to be very distinctive here. So for those of us who are responsible for strategy, for policy, this is where we take time to pause for a cause. And this is where we can take advantage and begin to craft and build those policies, what I like to call praxis, that we have yet done for these sectors. And not just for the festival economy, but the entire creative and cultural economy. Very much we are at a place where this gives us an opportunity to do that. For those of us who are the entrepreneurs and pursuing business, this is where we look for ways in which to pivot. And some have been doing it. Right now in Trinidad and Tobago, it will be a challenge because we've had to go under further restrictive measures to stem the spread of the virus. But we have seen persons trying to pivot, trying to create new ways of being and new derivative products based on the name and the brand that they would have crafted for themselves before.
And this makes me think of, you say praxis, and I think of Sankofa as well, in terms of like going back, looking at the lessons of the past and how they can inform the future. But in terms of building that capacity, what are some of those factors that we say, okay, well, we need to look at this, we need to factor this in? And we were having a conversation a little earlier with someone who was talking about building new hybrid models, which may be ascribed to in other spaces, but we haven't necessarily had the need to, so haven't done that here. What are some of those things that you suggest we look at and do?
Well, certainly not to sound like a sick record, but one of our challenges is that you can't know what you're doing if you don't know what you have. So you got to count. And we have been woeful at this. Even when we do count, we are somewhat inconsistent with it. So we might measure what's going on. So, for example, we still don't know how many people are employed in these sectors. We don't really know what is the fallout. I ran a small survey, but it's a survey, it's not a census. So we still don't have a sense of that. We don't really have a very clear sense of um, what are the dollars that the government may have lost in terms of these sectors. So that one of the places that we certainly need to start, one of our models has to be a very strong evaluative mechanism, and not one that is informal, but one that is now respected and finds its way within the central bank accounting. I don't know how many people know this, but certainly for the festivals, we don't have satellite accounting systems as yet. So certainly that's one. Secondly, we do need to get to a place where we will develop some kind of a blueprint. I know for sure that this one is being worked on, something that came out of some CVB deliberations last year about the need for creating a kind of blueprint as to how we would proceed forward in terms of when we can gather again. Because I think we all recognize that we won't be able to gather again in the ways that we have in the past, certainly not immediately. But we know if we do find those ways to contain the virus, as we're seeing in other parts of the region, then there may be opportunity to engage in smaller engagements. Hearing this now being in Trinidad and Tobago, even as we have this discussion, someone listening is, she crazy? So this is not a now thing. As you said, we're talking about the future. And it's interesting because I think it was about 2 years ago, I wrote a paper about the praxis for the future. We do need to get to a place where we do have that model that allows for us to pivot and to, of course, be more resilient. So that perhaps would be my third suggestion, that this is where we sit down now and we huddle and we really try to, as we would see in other parts of the world, where they sit down and really philosophize, strategize, and then implement, engineer, and actualize their strategies where their culture and entertainment is concerned. And
No,
of course, most importantly, how could I even forget this? Is really embracing digitalization. So effecting it and getting the persons who have those skill sets to show us how we can monetize better and monetize more on that digital platform.
and I hear what you're saying, and then it makes me wonder sometimes, who does the onus fall on? Is it the because you know sometimes people say it's your responsibility, and then somebody else says no man, it's yours, is you involved in this. But even before we get to that though, you've been an advisor, you've been a strategic planner, you've been a consultant further afield than Trinidad and Tobago. Are there any other places or models that you see you have your ear to the ground and you're saying, okay, well, this is something that possibly they're doing it well here, and we might want to take some of the points that they're getting right here and apply to our own situation?
Well, I think right now everybody is on the drawing board trying to figure out what to do. I don't think anyone has emerged yet with a model. And of course, I stand corrected. But I think we're at a place where, in other parts of the world and even some of our neighboring islands, they're at the drawing board, just trying to craft. Certainly, we have international organizations that are providing funding to assist with that, so that it's too early to say, but we need to get cracking. We similarly need to get on the drawing board and begin to craft that. That of course, then when we are able to open again, in terms of carnival, we could maintain that accolade of the greatest show on earth. Because sometimes we take these things for granted, but they do mean something elsewhere to someone, and that's why we get so many people coming here on a year-to-year basis. So that we do need to get cracking. That's the long and short of it.
And in terms of getting cracking, we have about a minute more, but I want to ask about the importance of collaboration. We're looking at COVAX facilities and the way that people have worked to develop vaccines. But how important is it that all stakeholders actually band together and get cracking at the table to move forward, going to the drawing board?
Right. Well, certainly, and I think that has always happened, DK. I don't think that we've ever really been as disparate as sometimes people may think. I think our challenge has been to translate. And I see this as the opportunity side of COVID, where it's like do or die. So perhaps now we would all of these plans and discussions that we've had in the past, and as we get on that drawing board, because I'm very positive and hopeful about that. I know of a few things going on in the region in terms of strategic planning and even here for aspects of the creative industries. So it's for it now to no longer just be a plan, but that we are able to actualize it, to effect it. And that is a collective responsibility. Once any plan is well written and done well, you are going to see all come on board and do their part. So I think our challenge really lies in actualizing, getting it actually done.
All right, in terms of everyone doing their part, I want to thank you for doing your part and the work that you're putting in at this point in time, Dr. Joanne Tull. And on behalf of the entire news team, we want to thank you for joining us here at the TTT News Special. I'm DK Roster. Have a good one.